Hello everyone, and welcome to game number 3 in our best of 3 series between Deathtacticus and Pbhead. Deathtacticus, despite a strong showing in game number 1, was unable to get anything going in game number 2, and Pbhead just kind of walked all over him straight into victory after a simple and strong early found. This game, not a whole lot of carbon going on. There's the possibility for scavengers, but I find it highly unlikely with this much iron on the map. Limited amounts of water space here, especially water that can be used easily with iron. We might see a scientist in this area, but I will be shocked if we don't have a robotic or expansive player this game. Both players apparently have found locations, multiple locations they are comfortable with, waiting for their opponent to go ahead and found first, which I find very interesting. Look at this. We've got multiple sets of combo tiles here. Deathtacticus does choose to avoid those, and go ahead and take the nearby water source for a scientific play, while Pbhead, he has simply dropped robotic in the midst of these combo tiles, providing plenty of aluminum and iron to him. Gonna be making steel almost immediately this game at HQ level 2. Gonna need to stay ahead this game. That's pretty standard with the robotic against scientist matchup. You hit HQ level 2 instantly, but then you need to kind of maintain that lead the best that you can throughout the game, as the scientist will do just such a great job of outproducing you. Deathtacticus, you can easily see in your log that you found it first. This did, of course, give Pbhead an extra claim early on in the game. And what has he used that for? It looks like he's going to grab a silicon. I believe that's also a silicon aluminum tile. Only can pull one of those resources out at once, but still very, very nice to have versatility when it comes to your tiles most of the time. And, ooh, this is a lot of iron coming out of Pbhead quickly this game. Doesn't want to rely too much on steel. He knew that if he had put down another steel mill, that would be driving the iron price up really, really high very quickly. That leaves things awkward for him. His opponent ignores the iron price. It's just not something he wanted to do immediately. Instead, he takes some extra iron quickly, then moves into his steel mill. Of course, robotic players do have the luxury of extra adjacency bonuses from their iron mines to their steel mills and all similar interactions of that type. Deathtacticus, there are pirates this game, but Deathtacticus, for the moment, is managing to defend himself. What happened up here? Alright, that's what happened up there. We'll go look at that in just a moment. Deathtacticus is kind of defending himself from the pirates, despite having this food flying through, by having the water as well. Don't want to risk pirating water when you're targeting food, and of course he will have the ability to link these to his base without too much trouble in the future, so the pirates should not be a significant hindrance to him this game. Also worth noting that there are EMPs and power surges available this game. Scientists are resistant to those, but very, very helpful against robotic players. We can see that Deathtacticus used a power surge earlier here, but only managed to shut down 3 of Pbhead's tiles, kind of choosing an awkward location to start the surge rather than one of the corners, which would have virtually guaranteed all 5 tiles getting hit. Not quite, but almost. He instead chooses one of the worst locations and only manages to freeze out 3 tiles for the duration. Not really what he's looking for. Pbhead has managed to pull himself to HQ level 3, however, he has not used all of his claims yet, and at this point, Deathtacticus, he's also HQ level 3. So he is going to get to use his claims immediately, like he has already utilized his claims. He's moving very quickly into food, a nice thing to have to be producing at this point. He does need to get into some kind of power soon, because guys, we've had 0.6 power being consumed by this colony every single second, basically, since this game started. I think it started at 0.2 or something. Now it's at 0.6. And of course, you combine that with the fact that we've had a large number of steel mills down this entire time. This has driven that power price very, very high already this game. 237, 238, 239, so on and so forth from there. So both players having to rush into geothermal plants at this point. Make sure they've secured plenty of power to keep alive this game. It does look like both players are going to manage to get down enough power to cover their costs, and Pbhead will actually have a significant amount more than that available, going to be operating at about a 2 surplus once his second geothermal plant comes online. Mutiny is available, but no dynamite, so it should not be overly difficult to secure these geotherms and potentially allow Pbhead a nice extra resource to be making money from, considering his potentially low debt this game. That said, if he goes deeply into this claim auction, he is going to mostly cut himself off from that, as it will add a significant amount to his debt, especially once interest has been paid on it. And he more or less cuts off his ability to make money from power quickly and easily this game. Pbhead is going to take it for 46,000, knocking himself down into that double B rating. However, it is an extra claim, and in fact, he's just going to use it to build a solar panel. I kind of wonder about that. Long term, it may still pay off, but for the moment, it's like, is that going to produce enough power that it was actually worth $16,000 of debt? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe if a solar flare had come out, something like that. On top of that, the solar panel has been positioned away from all the rest of his buildings. One option here would have been to use the solar panel to enhance his existing buildings. Of course, the issue with that is almost none of Pbhead's buildings are actually making any money right now. Just kind of a small detail, like 2 there, 0 there. Like, these steel mills should probably just be straight turned off. They don't have enough adjacency bonuses to make money, and they're simply getting in the way of power production, which once again argues against having put this solar panel down, as the steel mills would no longer be consuming power, and suddenly you wouldn't need so much power to have a significant surplus with it. Alright. Electrolysis reactors coming down for Deathtacticus. That is going to significantly increase his power consumption once they have been finished, so he might be looking at moving into a bit more power before too long, depending on exactly how much Pbhead feeds into this market. Now, Pbhead is down to $11,000 of debt. He's going to start making money from this very, very quickly at this point. Of course, an overwhelming amount of power without pushing super high can do that. And we're sitting at about 3 surplus. That's a nice place to be. Rather than moving into like the 9 surplus that just floods the market so fast, the price tanks. That 3 surplus has left Pbhead in a position where he keeps making money for an extended period of time from this power. What he will want to try and do is prevent Deathtacticus' second geotherm from coming up if he can, as that will cause the price to bottom out relatively quickly. Instead, Pbhead actually attacks all of Deathtacticus' standard buildings, which, yes, it keeps Deathtacticus from making money as easily in the future, but it also kind of hurts your own power profits. There's a bit of a double-edged sword to how you're fighting against your opponent there. Now, one of the big questionable things I think that Pbhead has done this game is he's moved into this silicon-glass combination, which of course, as a robotic player, you don't consume glass, generally speaking. You're not using it for anything, it's not used in your upgrades. It's like maybe if you drop a farm, you're using some glass eventually for an Offworld, yes, but in the short term, electronics are your primary concern. Moving into that silicon and glass quickly, it's not making a whole lot of money. The colony is not consuming a large amount of it, in fact, is consuming more electronics than glass, and you're just helping your opponent through their upgrades a bit better, reducing the amount of money they need to make in order to keep up with you in the long game. So I really don't like that move very much out of Pbhead. Would have rather he found a different market to exist in, if possible. Even if it's simply a life support area, giving your opponent a little bit less debt, that's usually going to be a bit better for you than allowing them access to easy upgrades. So that is something that I'm worried about for Pbhead this game. That said, HQ level 5, he does have a fair amount of debt once again after that auction, but is managing to keep paying down some power during the night, even with his solar panels offline. So that shouldn't... He'll be sitting at a very, very low amount of debt, still with the potential to make money from power for the duration of this game. That said, I don't think it's going to be a significant factor. 4 geotherms online, usually more than enough for 2 players, and so it's unlikely we're going to see a whole lot of profits coming from power super long term this game. Hacker Ray does come down from Deathtacticus. Spies are available once again, so a bit of a risky move. He is going to be moving into a food shortage here. Just kind of a nice simple thing. Your opponent isn't making it, you're making plenty of it. Why not try and make some money, right? I like this move out of Deathtacticus. It also lets him do something with his cash, and that it's invested into this shortage without having to put it into an upgrade, waiting for Pbhead to bring that price down just a little bit, then hitting the upgrade and starting to make some money. Could work out reasonably well. There is, in fact, a spy down, as we can see, on top of this hacker array. So Pbhead is well aware of this, of what's going on. He doesn't really want to risk buying into it at this stage, is what it looks like he's decided, but he does at least know what's happening and can transition into farms, which is what he is choosing to do. Another concern for Pbhead this game is that he had not yet secured water. He, in fact, founded in a location without access to a significant amount of water. And so he is going to get down a water pump now. Water not super valuable. Of course, the scientist does not generally consume a significant amount of it. And this is going to be it's going to be costly in terms of time to get transported. The power price is not going to be significant. Power's down at $25, still dropping, not a big deal, right? But the time cost, like, look at all this time. Now, how long has this water pump been flying out here? Like, for effectively forever, right? Then it has to fly all the way back, and it's just, it's a huge mess and a huge pain to get that kind of distance established there. It's just ridiculous. Deathtacticus, still sitting back on HQ level 4, has not decided to move to HQ level 5 this game. Does have the option to. It's not that it's impossible for him to do, it's just something he has elected not to do this game. He attempted to move into electronics, a potentially reasonable decision given his robotic opponent, combined with the modules that we've had on this neutral colony over the course of this game. But it has cut off his access to steel, which makes upgrading kind of awkward, like gives more money potentially to your opponent if he's still making steel, considering you're up against a robot. It just leaves everything super, super weird, and you're still stuck on fewer claims than your opponent long term. Yeah, you make better use of them generally. You're a scientist, you don't have to have access to as much water, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. But still, a concern. We did have a claim go, or an auction for a claim go off before. Just this high water tile, that's super awkward once again. Alright. It is worth noting that Pbhead has managed to build an off-world market at this stage. It is goon squatted. Spies are available. Deathtacticus could watch for that goon squad, but, I mean, what are you going to do? It's going to be a while before you can shut this down. There hasn't been a significant amount of aggression out of Deathtacticus thus far. And, of course, this dust storm is severely hindering him this game. He's trying to rely on dry ice condensers. There's a dust storm. He's trying to rely on food. There's a dust storm. And Pbhead has now decided that it is time to get aggressive. He has done the setup that he wanted to. He's got a patent lab, a hacker array, and an off-world market down. Maybe a little bit of overkill, but when you're this far ahead, a full upgrade up on your opponent and a full off-world market up on your opponent, why not? Why not just simply make it happen? Works for me. These solar panels kind of bother me, but once again, when you're so far ahead, you can afford these like little errors. And you're still going to be alright. Fuel costs are absurdly high. Not a significant impact on either player at this stage, except for Pbhead's launches costing maybe a little bit more than he would have expected, as those do take 20 fuel per launch. Just something you do have to factor into everything. You can see that's a $5,000 cost for that fuel right now, as opposed to the $20 cost of the aluminum. Deathtacticus 50% of the way to acquiring Pbhead, but Pbhead, you gotta say, he is a lot closer. Deathtacticus just trying to work on this hacker array, but not actually working it too effectively, it would seem. He did commit at HQ level 4, I am going to try to kill my opponent, but I think with this dust storm coming in, maybe without having access to quite enough tiles, it was just never going to work out. We needed to see a little bit more out of him to make this happen. Because both players sitting at about the same percentage on each other, it looks like. But that just leaves Pbhead that much closer at the end of the day. New claim auction once again. Pbhead could take this very, very easily. He has effectively no debt whatsoever. Whereas Deathtacticus has a small amount of debt, not a huge amount, so it's not too surprising to see both players bidding quite a significant quantity for this. I mean, it's just a new claim, and at this stage of the game, we're getting pretty late into the game. That claim is not going to have a significant amount of time to actually work, but that doesn't mean it can't get anything done. More and more stocks being bought by Pbhead. He actually, with that launch, should have enough to go ahead and wrap up this game. Deathtacticus without enough time to completely defend himself, and Pbhead is going to take game number 3 and the series to move on to the semifinal match against Gameslayer. All right, guys. That wraps up our matches for tonight. Deathtacticus trying to get into a position where he can go for the kill on HQ level 4, but doesn't have enough of a foothold on the market, it seems, to actually make that happen. Unfortunately for him. Pbhead just with a great founding location. I mean, you've got this aluminum iron ready to go. That set him up quite nicely to move forward this game, despite what appeared to be a couple of kind of awkward moves, in particular that glass play. He does manage to get a substantial lead on his opponent, move into HQ level 5, move into that Offworld market, and Deathtacticus is just stuck in the mud, dead in the water. Can't get anything done once again this game. Now, I will say that is contrary to my predictions, so predictions are completely out of the window. I thought Pbhead's time out of Offworld would hurt him enough in the 1v1 scenario that he wouldn't be able to quite pull it through against a player of Deathtacticus caliber, but I gotta say, it felt like Deathtacticus fell apart a little bit today. Too late to the found in Game 2, stuck in Game 3, can't make anything happen, and that alone will be enough to knock you on out of the tournament. And I will agree that it felt like Pbhead kind of understood founds a bit better, in particular in game number 2. Pbhead knew what he wanted to do with the found. In game number 3, I was okay with that Deathtacticus found, but maybe he jumped the gun on it just a little too quickly, considering he was going to be behind that claim. Could have gone robotic himself, tried to make that work. I didn't mind his found, but it didn't feel like it had the best execution attached to it. Yeah, the shorts in particular, I gotta say, did not feel particularly effective that game. I'm not sure exactly how many of them went off. We can go ahead and check right now. Just 2 shortages and then 1 surplus. The surplus on electronics, which I do believe Deathtacticus was making at one point. And of course allows easier access to that Offworld market. 1 shortage on food, 1 shortage on fuel. That did not feel like an active enough hacker array in terms of making money to really pull through that game. That combined with the awkward electronics production just made for a really strange scenario, although it does feel like the biggest boost that Pbhead got that game, what let him accelerate, was realistically just simply making like $60,000 off of power. That's such a huge amount of money. It can't be ignored. It's a massive amount of money that Pbhead managed to make. And Deathtacticus, he realistically could have made that happen for himself and simply didn't. So just that one simple read when power gets just a little out of control can hand over the game to one player or the other. Because as you can see, on World, Deathtacticus sold way more resources. Off-World, Pbhead had a significant amount as well. But once all of that is put together, it'll come out pretty even between the Off-World and the On-World. So then all you're looking at that point is this auto-sold figure and auto-purchased figure. And you can definitely see the differences when it comes down to that. There's also black market and such getting in the way a little bit, but, you know, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. We don't need to worry about that, right? Because that's how you spent your money, not how you made your money. It is time for me to go ahead and get on out of here. We are likely going to maybe have a match Thursday morning, right? The Mohawk Games stream is almost certain to happen on Thursday morning. Regardless, and if not, I will be back guaranteed on Saturday. Until then, thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you next time.